Hello and welcome to the Super Wildcard Weekend edition of our Futures Look. And Matt and Steven here for you. Adam will join us for the Megapod later in the week. And, you know, Steven, 6 games on tap this week. A lot of future implications that are still to be bet. You can still bet on who's going to win the AFC. You can still bet who's going to win the NFC. You can still bet who's going to win the Super Bowl. You can do exactas. You can do all the different things like that. So that is all still up for grabs out there. And, you know, it is a market in which, for me, at this point, I don't know if there is a ton of value left out there in betting those, because you could probably just navigate your way through. But some people don't want to bet that way, right? I mean, some people just want to put in one bet, forget it, move on, don't worry about anything. And if that's the way to go about it, then we'll see if any of the numbers stand out.
I agree. By the way, at the very beginning there, admit it, you almost forgot the Super and Super Wildcard Weekend, didn't you?
I mean, because, you know, I just look at it as another Wildcard Weekend, but hey, it's the Super one. It's the Super one, you know? Yes, so it is the Super Wildcard Weekend. So if you take a look here, I mean, if we're going to just really, I guess the draft is also out there, and like there's some things that we can start to look at least a little bit, or get you ready for from a futures aspect when it comes to the draft, because those are also things that you can go and take a look at. But if you're just going in right now, is there anything at all that you are looking? I mean, there's Super Bowl MVP, you know, if you want to try and guess the guy who's going to be there and try to get a much better number, there's always that.
Yeah, I just want to start with Super Bowl futures here. Yeah. And listen, let me preface this with everything's priced pretty much the way it's supposed to, right? The top 2 seeds are at the top of the board. The top 2 seeds are the 4 top teams on the board. So it all lines up correctly here, in my opinion. The Eagles were rightfully downgraded. I don't think you're getting any value betting on them. I do just want to emphasize the team I've mentioned a couple of times here, and you and Adam have talked about it too on the Megapod, the LA Rams, because I think they're going to beat Detroit. And I'll go into more reasons about why on the Megapod. And Eli and Mo seem to think that the Packers are live dogs against the Cowboys. Now, I don't know if I can get that far, but if it's at least a possibility, well, now we're talking about a scenario where the Rams might avoid the 49ers until the championship game. So I think if I'm looking at Super Bowl futures right now, on the NFC side, the Rams are pretty much the only team I'd be interested in, whether it's Super Bowl or to win the NFC championship. And it's not just because of, you know, service level stats or anything. If you look at their advanced metrics, when they're fully formed on offense, they have been one of the 2 elite offenses in the league right there with the 49ers. And if you look at their defense, it actually, second half of the season, has been around league average, which is more than can be said for most of the teams on the NFC side of the bracket, like the Cowboys and the Lions. So that's the sleeper team for me on the NFC side. On the AFC side, if I had to pick a team to come out of nowhere and maybe get to the title game, I'd probably pick the Cleveland Browns. But we're not talking about an offense that's been anywhere near as efficient as the LA Rams. We're talking about a team that has to rely on defense.
Yeah, I think that, and I might be way off here, but I actually think that this is pretty wide open. I mean, I know that we definitely look at the Niners and the Ravens as the 2 best teams in the NFL, and I can get behind that. That being said, I can't escape the feeling of, what do the Ravens do if they ever found themselves down 10 points? Like what would the Ravens do? What would the game plan be if they had to make up double digits in the second half of a game? I can't help but shake that and think that they would be very vulnerable to any of the teams in the playoffs. And that even includes the Steelers, maybe. I mean, like, seriously, like at the end of the day, how would they make up 10 points? And on the 49ers side of things, we've said this a million times over the course of the season, and this I don't even have to speculate about because we watched it play out over 3 games. If one of those dudes goes down, this is a different team. Like we saw when they were having to battle the injury bug, they looked like a completely different team for 3 games. Then they got back healthy and they started trucking again. Well, I can't help but shake. I don't wish injury on anyone. You don't wish injury on anyone. You're a 49ers fan. You sure as hell don't wish injury on anyone on the 49ers. But it is not out of the realm of possibility. It's a violent game. And so I can't help but shake that because I've seen that with my own eyes so far this season. So I don't think this is kind of like a slam the door on this being Ravens and 49ers there at the end.
I'll take it a step further with the 49ers. Even when they were fully formed, there's still a chance that Brock Purdy has a game where he turns it over too much. Like, I will fully admit, like, his efficiency is through the roof. He is the darling of the analytics world this year. And if it wasn't for him losing to Lamar Jackson and looking pitiful doing it, he'd be the MVP of the league. But there is, in the range of outcomes in a tournament that is single elimination, the chance that he lays an egg one of these games and turns it over too much, because he's still, in terms of a turnover-worthy play rate, is not where you'd want to be, like the elite quarterbacks who are seasoned veterans in the NFL. So that's still part of the range of outcomes here as well on the NFC side.
And the other part about this, and not that there's crazy weather in San Francisco all that often, or Santa Clara, I should say, but like, look, they have home field advantage throughout the playoffs. It's an outdoor team. It's an outdoor stadium, and we're going to be dealing with a weather game this week on the AFC side of things. Like, it's, could a monsoon come through there or whatever and make a game wonky and all that? Like, these are all things that we have to at least keep within the realm of possibilities. Now, is it likely? No, but in the range of possibilities of, could the speed get neutralized on a sloppy field? Could it be super incredibly windy where, they can only rely on the run game? And don't get me wrong, Christian McCaffrey's been awesome so far this year, but that's also because every time people think that they're just going to keep going to Christian McCaffrey, they bomb it down the field to Ayuk, or Deebo Samuel does something crazy out of the backfield and Kittle gets open across the middle. I think that there is, again, at least some factors here that make the 49ers at least come back down to earth a tad. And then, like I said, on the Ravens side of things, without Mark Andrews, kind of that go-to surefire dude, how does Lamar navigate a 10-point deficit in a fourth quarter? And I do wonder about that, if that were ever to come to fruition. And I don't think, if I told you, Steven, a game against any of these teams outside of maybe the Texans and the Steelers, if the Ravens found themselves in a 10-point deficit in the fourth quarter, I don't think you'd be shocked.
No, because we haven't seen Lamar Jackson show it to us in the postseason yet in his career, including when he had an MVP season. So until he does, we're going to be skeptical of it, right? Mm-hmm. Especially if he's playing, an elite defense like the Cleveland Browns, or a very well-rounded team with an elite quarterback in Josh Allen, who I admit turns the ball over too much still. Or, some guy named Patrick Mahomes, who still is alive in this tournament, despite having, struggles with his pass catchers. So, yeah, he's got to show it to me first. And even though they beat the 49ers and looked great doing it, it was because of turnovers. They still gave up a ton of yardage, a ton of high efficiency in terms of yards per play against the Niners. So, they got to show it to me when it matters most, and in particular, Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, one of the things I like to do if I'm going to take a long shot heading into the playoffs is I would either do if not a 50-50, like a 60-40, 70-30 type split on conference winner and Super Bowl winner, as opposed to just Super Bowl champion. Because it's nice to have that guaranteed cash, and then you can figure out other ways to hedge your other part of the stake and all that if you want to go that direction. But I have had longer shot tickets get to the Super Bowl before, only to have them go down, and then it's just, you never end up hedging as much as you think, and never end up winning as much as you think with all that. And it's nice to just get home in the conference title game with some of those things. So, however you want to go about it, but I'd recommend putting at least a sprinkle on both when it all comes down to it.
Yeah, I agree with that. Matt, the other thing I wanted to talk about on this show this week are some of these playoff specials that are out there, to lead the postseason in passing yards, passing touchdowns, etc. Mo Noir has got a great article up on the site right now about some of these markets. And the reason I think it's more interesting going into this postseason than some of the more recent playoffs that we've seen is because we have two games with winter weather concerns in Kansas City and Buffalo. And guys near the top of these odds boards in these markets like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, who are going to have probably a hard time or harder than usual time passing the ball in these games. So perhaps with that in mind, some of the more longer shots or maybe a second choice is mispriced when you consider that. So I like to start with the quarterbacks. And, I know Brock Purdy has a bye week, but I think we both agree that they are still the most likely team to get to the Super Bowl on the NFC side. And if he's sitting at plus 450 to lead the NFL in playoff passing yards, when some of the other leaders are, having these weather concerns or just frankly being able to advance deep into the playoffs concerns, that has me interested considering just how efficient of a passer he has been at almost 9-10 yards per attempt this season.
Yeah, no, I think that is a very, very sharp look in all of this. And I think there's other convictions you can go and put into practice with betting where if you go to some of the playoff specials, the team head to head to progress further in the playoffs, you can go in and look. And if you full on want to fade a team, if you full on dislike one of the teams out there, you can go in and you can kind of put your money where your mouth is with some of this stuff and go in and bet against some of these teams making it further in the playoffs and whatnot. And I think that's at least an interesting way to have things play out too. Highest scoring team also could play into that handicap that you were just talking about. Not only just the passing leaders and rushing leaders and receiving leaders, but also the highest scoring team throughout the course of the playoffs. As you mentioned, if these are going to be games in which we are seeing, and we are already seeing some of these totals getting suppressed, right? The Bills Steelers is 36.5 right now. We're looking at the Chiefs and the Dolphins total coming way, way down, over the course of the week as well. So maybe some of those highest scoring teams things could be exploited too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've been looking for a market on highest scoring game wildcard weekend. I haven't found it yet. And as long as it's not just a ridiculous minus price or something, I'm probably going to bet on the Cowboys-Packers game to be the highest scoring game of the weekend. Because if you look at, what these defenses have been over the past 2 months here, it is near the bottom of the league. It is not good. And on top of that, the Packers metrics defensively have been against really bad quarterbacks in that stretch, and they're still near the bottom. So I think this is a very high scoring game. On top of that, you have the two games with the weather concerns in Buffalo and Kansas City, where you can basically cross those games off in consideration for this market. They usually post it closer to kickoff on Sunday or Saturday, but that's one I would certainly be looking at. And I definitely am confident that the Dallas and Green Bay game will be higher scoring than the Detroit LA game, with Detroit down likely one of its top pass catchers in Sam Laporta.
Yep. I look here, and if you guys just want to play where we know there's no weather, there are domes in Houston and Dallas and in Detroit. And there's a market currently up for who's going to have the most passing yards during the wild card round. You can go in and you can target some of these guys at maybe some of these longer odds that are going to be playing in favorable conditions and fade some of these dudes that are not. So other things that you can look at there. Same deal for who will have the most receiving yards during the wild card round, who will have the most rushing yards during the wild card round. I think there's a few different ways that you can really try to go in, and you're just reading you're just taking advantage of the current situation. Is at the end of the day, are we still just taking an educated guess? Yes, we are still just taking an educated guess. But with all that, we're putting some of the stuff that we do know to be true, Stephen, into practice by fading some of these guys that are going to be playing in games that we think might be suboptimal conditions.
Yeah, I agree with all of that. And as we wrap up here, Matt, I have an idea.
Yep.
If you're down, I would like to wrap up with each of us giving our actual predictions of who's going to be in the Super Bowl, and then like your long shot prediction of who's going to be in the Super Bowl and who will win. And when you do that, I will read you the odds for that name the finalists price and also the exacta price for everybody out there.
But okay, before we do that, I wanted to run through one last thing here since this is a futures show.
Sure.
This is the final win totals graded over the course of the season, just to kind of let everybody know how things broke down. And these were just courtesy of DraftKings, so I just happen to have these on hand here. But Ravens win total 8.5. Of course, they get to 13, so 4.5 games over their win total. Texans was at 5.5. They get to 10. That's also a plus 4.5. Cowboys 9.5 get to 12 plus 3.5. Lions 9.5 get to 12 plus 2.5. Rams 7.5 get to 10 plus 2.5. Colts and Bucks both 6.5 get to 9, so they're plus 2.5s. Boy, didn't see that Colt one coming. That is for damn sure. Browns 9.5 get to 11. They're plus 1.5. Dolphins 9.5 get to 11 plus 1.5. Steelers 8.5 get to 10. The Packers 7.5 get to 9. The Eagles 10.5 get to 11. They squeak over this year. The 49ers 11.5 get to 12. They also squeak over that super high win total there. That was closing line for the 49ers. Bills 10.5 get to 11. Seahawks 8.5 get to 9, and then the Raiders 7.5, and they get to 8. On the under side of things, as you would imagine, the most underperforming team was in fact the Panthers, 7.5, and they had 2. Chargers 9.5, they had 5. Commanders 7.5, they had 4. Patriots 7.5 to 4. Giants 8.5 to 6. Bengals 11.5 to 9, which good job, I guess, there, considering you lose Burrow as early as you did in the season. Giants 8.5 to 6. Jets 9.5 to 7. Jags 10.5 to 9. Titans 7.5 to 6. Cardinals 5.5 to 4. Vikings 8.5 to 7. Falcons 7.5 to 7. Bears 7.5 to 7. Broncos 8.5 to 8. Saints 9.5 to 9. And Chiefs 11.5 to 11. But Steven, the reason I wanted to go through these real quick is just to show people where you and I talked about this before the season, and we'll talk about it again heading into next season. But if you have conviction on a team, betting some of these alt lines can always be an interesting way to go. We have the Ravens, Texans, Cowboys, Lions, Rams, Colts, and Bucks all exceed their win total by more than 2 games. We have the Panthers, Chargers, Commanders, Patriots, Giants, Bengals, Giants, Bengals, Jets all miss their win total by 2 games on the other side of things. And so if you have convictions heading into a season, you can play some of these alts to get plus money on them, maybe even bigger plus money if you have a ton of conviction, because there always are these situations. That is half the league that either exceeded or failed to reach their win totals by 2 games.
Yeah, I think it's you and Mo have been on this for multiple seasons now. It is a fantastic point. Your payouts will be better if you're right about these teams that you like. And you know, nothing's stopping you either from like splitting your bet. If you don't want to be as aggressive as Matt is saying, split your bet from what you normally do on the straight up win total and put half of it on the alt. So there's many ways to go about this, but there is multiple seasons worth of research to show that the alts in the win total market are the more strategic mathematical way to go.
All right, Steven, you kick it off with your Super Bowl with your Super Bowl picks here.
All right, I'll go straight up first, and then I'll give you the crazy lottery long shot I like. I'm going to go Bills versus 49ers in the Super Bowl. And right now, that matchup in terms of naming the finalists is kind of about the second choice or in the market. You can get 6-1 on that finalist pairing. Hopefully you heard what I've been saying for weeks and have had it when it was like 40-1 a few weeks ago when the Bills weren't sure to get in, but 6-1 right now I still think is a decent price. And then 49ers over the Bills in the Super Bowl is 10-1. First one was at MGM. The exacta is at Caesars. Now, for my crazy long shot here, I'm going to pair up the 2 sleepers, I think, in both conference to get to the Super Bowl. Browns against the Rams. And I bet Rams over Browns exacta at Caesars at 1,000-1 a couple of weeks ago. I think it's still pretty close to that price because I don't know if they're getting much action in this market anyway. But a Rams-Browns Super Bowl is 400-1 if they both just get there at BetMGM. So
nice.
There you go.
That Niners over Bills is actually 11-1 over at DraftKings, so you can get it currently as we sit right now. Get a better number. Look, I know it's boring. It's very hard for me to get away from the 49ers in the NFC. I'm, as the leaks that we have seen from the Eagles down the stretch, what I believe of this Cowboys defense in reality, which is outside of Micah Parsons, that it's still a very gettable defense. I don't see a huge upset from either one of those teams. And maybe it comes down the line, like you said, with one of these other ones. So it's very hard for me to get away from the 49ers, the NFC side of things. Over on the AFC side, as much as I'd like to say the Bills, I'm going to be the chalky McChalkerson here. Unless the Ravens find themselves in a big deficit, they play bully so incredibly well. And Lamar doesn't do stupid stuff anymore. And with all of that, I think they're going to be pretty tough to beat. But
that's 3-1. Ravens Niners Super Bowl is 3-1.
That said, if we're going wonky, I think the Browns could beat anybody in the AFC with the defense that they have and kind of their YOLO offense. And now if the YOLO offense is not working, they could also get drummed, because it's like if Flacco's throwing picks all over the place and receivers are dropping balls and all whatever, like
because they can't run the ball now with how hurt the offensive line is.
They can't run the ball at all. It's like it is a super high variance offense, but the thing is they've only got to run on the right side of variance for 4 games. You know what I mean? Like, so there's something to think about when it comes to that, right? And I really do think the Browns on the AFC side of things are your team that could upset the apple cart when it comes to chalky stuff. And if you think over on the NFC side of things, if it's not the Niners, I'll just say that the Cowboys end up dodging a McCarthy stupid decision somewhere along the way, because it is a really talented team. It's just McCarthy does hold them back.
Browns versus Niners 28-1 at BetMGM. Browns versus Cowboys 66-1. If you want to do the actual exacta, Cowboys over Browns or Browns over Cowboys is 100-1. Is that right? Yeah, 100-1 over at Caesars. And you said Ravens, right?
Yeah.
On the other side, yeah, that's going to be the favorite in the market. So probably like 6-1 if you could do Ravens Niners.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome, guys, and I can't wait. I honestly think it's wide open. I know you're probably thinking I'm just doing this to like keep you coming back and watching our videos each week, but I really do. I honestly think it's wide open, and we'll break this down. Just a teaser here. I have 6 bets in my account already, so you're going to want to come back for the Megapod for sure and see what we got going on. So be sure and catch us over on, again, either anywhere podcasts are found or over on this very here YouTube channel as well. For Steven, I'm Matt. Good luck on all your futures bets.